She only married him because of my war photos. That's what Kelsey whispered, just before Kyle clapped my shoulder in front of a crowd and said, "Still limping, huh? Maybe I'll get you a counseling discount, hero." They laughed. Over my limp, my rank, even my mother. But then the windows shook, and a military helicopter dropped onto the baseball field. The side door slammed open. "Colonel Withers, we need you." Now, what none of them knew was this. Kyle was already a target, and I wasn't just back for the punch, I was back for justice. But before we begin, let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. My name is Jared Withers, and I'm 36 years old. I spend my days in Mom's back room, icing a bad hip and watching dust motes dance through the Texas heat. My mother Sandra fusses over me like I'm still 18, bringing coffee and asking too many questions. The whispers started the day I limped back to Pine Ridge, especially from Kyle Redding, my old high school rival, and now some hotshot tech CEO, who married my ex-girlfriend Kelsey right after I deployed. My fingers traced the edge of an old DARPA file I kept from my intelligence days, the one with Kyle's startup pitch stamped classified in faded red. The reunion invitation that just landed on my porch might be exactly what I needed. But let me start from the beginning. I stood in front of Mom's bathroom mirror fighting with the buttons on my old blue-collared shirt. The fabric pulled tight across my shoulders. Guess those gym sessions during rehab had done something after all. My fingers trembled slightly as I worked each button, and I caught myself grinding my teeth. You ever notice how some memories stick to places like old gum under a desk? That high school gym had plenty, none of them good. The drive over was quiet, just the crunch of gravel under my tires and the cooling tick of the engine when I pulled into the lot. Music thumped through the gymnasium walls. Same sound system they'd used for our graduation, probably. I took a deep breath, grabbed my cane from the passenger seat and stepped out into the humid evening air. The gym doors felt heavier than I remembered. Inside, the place smelled like floor wax and punch that had probably been spiked. Some things never change. But everything else? Pure theater. Streamers, balloons, those tissue paper flower things that look expensive but aren't. Classic reunion stuff meant to mask how we'd all gotten older, grayer, wider in some places and thinner in others. "Well, holy shit if it isn't Jared Withers." The voice boomed across the basketball court before I'd made it 3 steps in. Kyle Redding, of course. Still tall, still carrying that quarterback build, though his suit probably cost more than my truck. He crossed the floor like he owned it, which, given how much he'd apparently donated to the school, he practically did. The man, the myth, the early retiree. Kyle's hand clapped my shoulder hard enough to make me shift my weight to my good leg. 36 is pretty young to be calling it quits, buddy. But hey, thank you for your service and all that. My jaw clenched. Good to see you too, Kyle. He was drawing a crowd now, playing to them like always. "So what are you up to these days?" "Mom told my secretary she sees you at the grocery store sometimes. You working there or?" He let the question hang, eyebrows raised. "Just shopping," I said flatly. The circle of onlookers grew wider. Right. Living with your mom still? That's great, man. Real admirable. Taking care of family and all." Kyle's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Though that limp looks rough. PTSD giving you trouble too?" "My company does some contract work with the VA. Maybe I could hook you up with some counseling." The group tittered. I felt heat creep up my neck but kept my face neutral. 18 years of intelligence work teaches you to wear a mask pretty well. That's when I caught Kelsey's eye across the room. She was standing near the punch bowl, wearing a simple black dress that made her look almost exactly like she had at senior prom. But there was something in her expression, something tired and bitter that hadn't been there back then. "I need some air," I muttered, turning away from Kyle's performance. Outside, the night air hit my face like a cool cloth. I leaned against the brick wall, letting my cane take some weight off my hip. "He's such an ass." Kelsey's voice startled me. She'd followed me out, arms crossed against the evening chill. "He hasn't changed since high school, just got richer and meaner." "You married him," I said more sharply than I meant to. She laughed, but there wasn't any humor in it. "Want to know why? Your deployment photos. He saw them online. You looking all heroic in your uniform. Suddenly he couldn't stop talking about you, comparing himself to you. Next thing I knew, he was bringing me flowers, taking me to fancy restaurants. I was young and stupid enough to think he'd actually grown up. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Before I could respond, the air cracked with a familiar sound. Helicopter rotors getting closer fast. Floodlights swept across the baseball field as a military chopper descended, kicking up dust and loose paper. The side door slid open before the skids even touched down. A figure in dark tactical gear jumped out and strode toward us, moving with purpose. "Colonel Withers," he shouted over the rotor wash. "You're needed. Now." The chopper's familiar thrum vibrated through my bones as I climbed aboard. Inside, 2 agents in tactical gear made room on the bench. One handed me a headset without a word. The cabin smelled like gun oil and fresh coffee. Some things never change, even when you switch agencies. "Sir, we apologize for the theatrical entrance," the first agent said through the comm. "But we needed to maintain appearances. And honestly, your reunion provided perfect cover." I adjusted the headset, fighting a smile. Whatever this was, it beat watching Kyle work the room. "Where are we headed?" "DHS field office, 40 minutes out." "That's all we can say until we land." The words containment operation and compromised contractor got tossed around during the flight, but nothing concrete. Standard compartmentalization. I spent those 40 minutes watching familiar Texas terrain scroll beneath us, wondering if this was the universe's way of throwing me a lifeline. My hip ached less than usual. The field office turned out to be a converted warehouse on the outskirts of Dallas. Inside, past 3 security checkpoints and down 2 flights of stairs, I found myself in a windowless conference room, the kind with soundproofing on the walls and that distinct government-issue coffee maker in the corner. A woman in a charcoal suit, Director Chen according to her badge, cut straight to the chase. "Colonel Withers." "Just Jared," I corrected. I was never actually a colonel. She smiled thinly. "We know. But your expertise in signals intelligence and your unique connection to this case make you invaluable." My stomach tightened. "What connection?" She slid a folder across the table. Inside was a photo that sent me straight back to 2012. Kyle Redding, younger and somehow even more arrogant, standing at a DARPA podium. I was in the background, barely visible, wearing civilian clothes and a fake name badge. "You were there as our observer when Mr. Redding pitched his software platform," Chen said. "What you didn't know was that meeting flagged him in our system. We've been watching his company for years. Now we need someone who can get close. Someone with authentic Pine Ridge history." The pieces clicked. Kyle's company is selling secrets. Worse. They're trafficking complete defense prototype packages to foreign buyers, but proving it. She spread her hands. "That's where you come in." Another agent, Marshall, according to his introduction, took over. "We need you to rebuild contact. Use the reunion as a starting point. Your background provides perfect cover. The bitter veteran, maybe looking for investment opportunities or consulting work. He'll believe it because it fits his worldview." I leaned back, processing. Why now? Why the urgency? Chen's expression darkened. "Because in 6 weeks, Redding's company launches their new defense contract. A contract we've discovered was obtained through falsified credentials and bribes. Once that system goes live, they'll have legitimate access to everything," I finished. The scope of it hit me like a physical weight. Marshall nodded. "Exactly. We need proof of the trafficking operation before that happens. But it has to be clean, legal, and completely compartmentalized. No one can know you're working with us." "And if I say no?" Chen's smile returned, sharper this time. "Then we thank you for your time and find another way. But consider this, Jared. How often does someone get a chance to serve their country and settle an old score at the same time?" I thought about Kyle's smirk in the gym, about Kelsey's bitter confession, about 19 years of service that ended with me living in my mother's spare room while he played tech mogul with stolen goods. "I'll need resources," I said, "and a solid cover story for that helicopter entrance." "Already arranged." Marshall pushed another folder forward. "We'll start by—" "Wait." I held up a hand. "First, tell me exactly what kind of tech we're talking about. What's he stealing?" Chen and Marshall exchanged looks. Finally, Chen leaned forward and lowered her voice. Everything, Jared. Weapons systems, drone controls, battlefield coordination platforms. If it's in our defense network, he's finding ways to copy and sell it. And in 6 weeks, unless we stop him, he gets the keys to the entire kingdom. I spent the next morning in a secure DHS annex, cramming Kyle's company profile like it was final exam week. Their startup, RedTech Solutions, had all the buzzwords: innovative defense interfaces, next-gen military communications, seamless battlefield integration. Behind the corporate shine, though, the numbers felt wrong. Too much profit for too little product. Your cover story's simple, Marshall explained, spreading photos across the table. You're struggling to adjust, looking for purpose. The helicopter at the reunion. We'll say it was a military buddy doing you a favor, trying to help you save face. Kyle will eat that up. I nodded, studying RedTech's org chart. And my actual mission parameters? Observe and report. Document anything that looks like prototype testing or unusual data transfers. We'll have minimal surveillance in place, but once you're inside, you're largely on your own. That part made my stomach clench. But I'd operated with less backup in Kandahar. At least here, no one was actively trying to kill me. Probably. Remember how small towns work? How running into someone is never really an accident? 2 days later, I happened to visit the Daily Grind, right when Kyle typically grabbed his morning coffee. The place hadn't changed since high school. Same worn leather chairs, same faint smell of burnt beans. Kyle was holding court near the window, laptop open, talking loudly about market projections. I let him spot me first, let him see me hesitate like I might leave. Right on cue, he waved me over. Jared, hey man, about the other night. He had the decency to look slightly embarrassed. That helicopter thing, pretty wild. I shrugged, eyes down, playing it perfectly humble. Just an old buddy trying to help me save face. Didn't mean to disrupt your event. No, it was awesome. Really livened things up. Kyle leaned forward, lowering his voice. Listen, been meaning to ask, what are you up to these days? Career-wise? I let my shoulders slump. Still figuring that out. Hard to translate military skills to civilian work, you know? The gleam in his eyes told me he'd taken the bait. Actually, we might have something at RedTech. Nothing huge, but we're always looking for veterans to test our interfaces. Real-world perspective, you know? Plus, great PR angle. Empowering our heroes and all that. I made a show of considering it. I don't know, Kyle. Just part-time to start. See how it fits. He slid his business card across the table. Come by tomorrow. We'll talk details. Over the next week, I played the grateful soldier, learning RedTech systems while quietly mapping their facility. The place was a maze of cubicles and secured server rooms. I noted camera positions, guard rotations, which employees stayed latest. More importantly, I caught fragments of conversations about prototype testing and offshore data centers. But something felt off. One of Kyle's senior managers, a guy named Trent, kept asking oddly specific questions about my service record. Which commands, which years, who I'd reported to. The kind of details that wouldn't matter for interface testing. That's when I knew I needed Marcus. I waited until I was miles from RedTech, parked at an old truck stop with no cameras, before making the call. Marcus picked up on the second ring. Henley. It's Withers. Remember that thing in Kandahar, the communications hub? A pause. The one where we found unauthorized channels going to some very interesting places? Yeah. I think I'm looking at something similar. Bigger scale. Location? Pine Ridge, Texas. Guy named Kyle Redding. Marcus's laugh was cold. The startup wonder boy? Been hearing whispers about him in certain circles. None of them good. Want to help me prove those whispers true? Give me 48 hours, I'll bring the gear. Another pause. This personal for you, Jared? I thought about Kyle's smug face, about Kelsey's words at the reunion. Let's just say I won't mind seeing this polished fraud buried. Good enough, we'll start with deep surveillance, work our way in. See you in 2 days. I hung up feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Marcus was a legend in signals intelligence. If anyone could help me crack Kyle's operation, it was him. More importantly, he was family. We'd saved each other's lives more than once in Afghanistan. The next morning, I walked into Red Tech with a new spring in my step. Kyle was about to learn the hard way. Never mistake a limping wolf for a wounded one. Marcus rolled into town like a ghost. No fanfare, just a weathered Ford pickup and enough surveillance gear to tap half of Texas. We met at an old fishing spot outside city limits, where the creek bends around a cluster of dead cottonwoods. "Nice place for a meeting," he said, pulling equipment cases from under a tarp. "No electronics for half a mile. Some habits die hard." I helped him unload, my hip protesting. "Remember those cave drops in Kunar? Different time, same mission." Marcus's beard had more gray now, but his hands were steady as ever as he assembled what looked like ordinary wireless routers. "These babies will map every data packet in the building, completely passive. They'll never know we're watching." For the next 3 days, we worked the angles. Marcus posed as an IT contractor upgrading Red Tech's network infrastructure. Kyle's team practically fell over themselves helping him access their server rooms. Meanwhile, I kept playing the eager veteran, learning the ropes, staying visible. The data started flowing immediately. Marcus's equipment caught everything: emails, file transfers, encrypted channels to servers we'd never heard of. Kyle was getting sloppy, confident in his technical superiority. He never imagined 2 old warhorses could crack his security. "Got something," Marcus muttered one evening, hunched over his laptop in our makeshift command center, the spare room behind Mom's house. Large data packets moving through multiple proxies. Final destination looks like... He frowned. "Well, let's just say it's not NATO-friendly." I leaned closer. "Enough to move on?" "Almost. Give me 48 more hours to..." My phone buzzed. Homeland Security. I stepped outside to take the call. "Operation suspended," the agent said without preamble. "Stand down immediately." My stomach dropped. "What happened?" "Mr. Redding filed a formal complaint. Claims you're exhibiting erratic behavior, making threats, suffering from..." A pause. "Post-traumatic delusions. That's bullshit and you know it. Doesn't matter. He's got friends in procurement. They're pushing back hard, calling this harassment of a legitimate contractor. Our hands are tied until legal sorts it out." I hung up and stood there in the dark, letting the rage wash through me. Kyle had outmaneuvered us, used my service record against me. Classic psychological warfare. The next day at Red Tech, security escorts appeared. New protocol, they said, following me everywhere. Access cards stopped working for certain areas. Kyle's inner circle suddenly had no time for the broken veteran. Marcus and I watched helplessly as our window narrowed. 4 weeks until the DoD certification. 4 weeks until Kyle's tech went live, legitimizing whatever he was selling to our enemies. "We could go public," Marcus suggested. "Blow the whistle." I shook my head. No proof that would stick. Kyle would spin it as PTSD-driven paranoia. We'd look like conspiracy theorists. 10 days later, I sat in my truck outside Red Tech, watching Kyle's office lights burn late. The familiar weight of defeat pressed down. The same hollow feeling I'd had watching good men die for worthless ground in Afghanistan. Maybe it was time to walk away. Let someone else fight this one. My burner phone lit up. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Almost. "Hello? Jared?" Kelsey's voice crackled with static and fear. "I need help." "What's wrong?" "I was looking for insurance papers in Kyle's study. Found a hidden safe instead." Her breath hitched. "There are passports inside, foreign ones. Mine has a different name, but it's my photo." My hand tightened on the phone. "When?" "The issue date is next month. There's a plane ticket too. Private charter to Singapore." She lowered her voice. "Jared, I think he's planning to run, and he's planning to take me with him." The county park was deserted at 7 a.m. Just a few early joggers huffing past the metal benches. I spotted Kelsey's silver Lexus in the far lot, parked away from the lampposts. Smart girl. She was already waiting by the duck pond, bundled against the morning chill in a camel hair coat that probably cost more than my truck. Her hands clutched a thick manila envelope like it might explode. "Thanks for meeting me," she said, glancing over her shoulder. The dark circles under her eyes told me she hadn't slept. "You're sure you weren't followed?" "I took 3 different routes here, just like you said." Her attempt at a smile failed. Guess those spy movies Kyle loves finally came in handy. We found a bench partially hidden by overgrown crepe myrtles. The smell of wet leaves and mud brought back memories of high school, sneaking out here after football games back when life seemed simpler, before wars and betrayals complicated everything. Kelsey pulled a black binder from the envelope. I photographed everything I could. The safe had 2 compartments, one for our regular documents, one hidden behind it. Her hands shook as she opened to the first tab. Look at the issue dates. I studied the visa papers, diplomatic clearances, bank records, all pristine forgeries with Kyle's trademark attention to detail. Then I saw Kelsey's photo, attached to a Malaysian passport under the name Sarah Chen. Processing date, 2 weeks from now. He's been planning this for months, she whispered, building his escape route while I planned summer vacation. Her laugh was bitter. God, I'm such an idiot. You're not. I touched her arm briefly. Kyle's fooled a lot of people, including the Department of Defense. What do you mean? I hesitated, weighing operational security against the need for truth. That contract he's about to sign. It's not the endgame, it's leverage. Once the DoD certifies his tech, he can name his price to foreign buyers, then disappear with the money before anyone realizes what he sold. And take me with him. Kelsey's face hardened. Whether I want to go or not. I closed the binder carefully. I need to show this to my partner. We might be able to keep it. She stood abruptly. I made copies of everything important. Just promise me something. Name it. When you take him down, because I know that's what you're really doing. Make it stick. Make it public. Her voice cracked. I want everyone to see exactly who he is. Marcus was waiting at our makeshift command post when I arrived. One look at the binder and he switched into analyst mode, spreading documents across my mother's kitchen table. Beautiful work, he muttered, examining the visa stamps under a jeweler's loupe. See these microprinted numbers in the corner? They're actually routing codes, probably for offshore accounts. Can we trace them? Better. He pointed to a series of seemingly random letters. These are old-school KGB markers. Kyle's using Soviet-era protocols to move money through shadow banks. Sloppy tradecraft. He probably copied it from some dark web manual. I leaned against the counter, my hip aching. So we have proof he's planning to run? But not what he's selling. Or to whom? Marcus scratched his beard thoughtfully. Unless... What are you thinking? Kyle's eager to close deals before he disappears, right? And he loves showing off his technical genius. Marcus fired up his laptop. So let's give him what he wants. Foreign buyers, very interested, very funded. We'll need clean IPs, untraceable phones. And a convincing cover story. I smiled for the first time in days. How's your Norwegian accent these days? We spent the next 8 hours building our trap. Marcus ghosted a series of encrypted emails through servers in Oslo and Stockholm. I crafted biographical data for our fictional NATO procurement team, salting in just enough classified details to seem legitimate. The bait was almost set when my DHS contact called. Reddings accelerated his timeline, she said without preamble. DoD certification is now scheduled for 2 weeks from today. Whatever you're planning, make it fast. I looked at Marcus, still hunched over his computer. How soon can we be ready? He held up 2 fingers. 48 hours to final checks. Then we go fishing. I slumped in my mother's ancient recliner, staring at Kelsey's text. Kyle leaves for DC investor pitch Mon AM, moving fast. My stomach nodded. We'd planned for 2 weeks. Now we had less than 48 hours. Marcus, I called toward the kitchen. Timeline's compressed. How quick can we set this up? He appeared in the doorway, coffee mug in hand. Define quick. Friday or never. Kyle's heading to Washington Monday. Marcus set his mug down with deliberate care. Well, shit. He drummed his fingers on the wall, that old NSA habit when he's processing. Okay. We've got the shell accounts ready. Give me 6 hours for the digital infrastructure. But we'll need a location that screams legitimate business without being traceable. What about that new co-working space off Main? I pulled up their website. Private conference rooms, temp office rentals, clean enough for a NATO-adjacent think tank to use. Could work, He peered at my screen. Book it under Scandinavian Defense Analytics Group. I already built that cover. Make it look like they regularly rent satellite offices for contractor meetings. I made the reservation while Marcus disappeared into his tech cave. The next few hours blurred into a cascade of details. Forged business cards, encrypted calendar invites, carefully crafted email threads establishing our fictional procurement team's urgency. European defense integration deadline, Marcus muttered, typing furiously. Perfect excuse to fast-track contracts. Kyle won't resist a chance to corner the NATO market. The bait email went out at 3 p.m. I paced the kitchen, hip screaming, while we waited. 20 minutes later, Kyle's response lit up our secure inbox. Intriguing opportunity. My schedule is tight, but I could make Friday work for an exclusive presentation. Your credentials are impressive. Looking forward to discussing integration parameters in detail. Got him. Marcus grinned. Cocky bastard didn't even run a deep check on our shell company. He's too busy planning his exit. I dropped into a chair. Now we just need the presentation to go perfectly. One slip up and... Not gonna happen. Marcus squeezed my shoulder. We've got this, brother. The next day and a half was a blur of preparation. I drafted briefing notes while Marcus fine-tuned our digital smokescreen. We needed Kyle comfortable enough to show his full hand, but not so relaxed he'd spot the trap. Thursday night, I sat at my laptop, hands trembling slightly as I typed the final prep memo. The words blurred together after a while. Meeting protocols, recording equipment specs, emergency extraction plans. One oversight could blow the whole operation. Let Kyle walk free. Let him hurt more people. Stop overthinking, Marcus called from his station. You're making that face again. What face? The weight of the world face. Same one you had before that night op in Kandahar. He tossed me a protein bar. Eat something. Then help me upload this decoy interface file for tomorrow's demo. I unwrapped the bar and moved to his desk. The interface upload was our last major task, a convincing but harmless version of Kyle's software that would let him show off without revealing we knew about the real code. Marcus typed commands rapid fire, muttering about encryption protocols. Then suddenly he froze, fingers hovering over the keyboard. What's wrong? We've got a breach attempt. He pointed to a blinking alert. Someone's trying to access our secure channel. From inside a government node. My chest tightened. DHS? Can't tell yet. But whoever it is has serious clearance. His fingers flew across the keys. They're using administrative credentials. Wait. He sat back, face grim. This is a federal law enforcement backdoor. Someone with major access just tried to peek at our operation. Kyle has friends in high places, I said quietly. Think he knows? If he doesn't yet, he might soon. Marcus started typing again, rerouting connections. Question is, who's the leak? And how much have they told him? I stared at the breach alert still flashing. After everything we'd built, after coming so close. Had someone just handed Kyle his escape route? What do we do? I asked. Marcus cracked his knuckles. We adapt, like always. He pulled up a new terminal window. Help me rebuild these security layers. We've got 12 hours to make this airtight, and I'm not letting some bureaucrat blow our only shot at justice. Friday morning hit like a gut punch. I'd been up since 4, checking and rechecking every detail with Marcus. The co-working space looked perfect, just generic enough for a visiting European think tank, just polished enough for a NATO-adjacent meeting. Cameras are live, Marcus confirmed from our makeshift control room down the hall. Audio's crystal clear. DOJ agents are in position. I adjusted my tie, feeling the weight of the wire beneath my shirt. The breach attempt still nagged at me, but we'd tripled our security protocols. If someone had tipped Kyle off, we'd know soon enough. You ever notice how time moves differently when you're waiting to spring a trap? Those last 15 minutes before Kyle's arrival stretched like taffy. I paced the conference room, my hip protesting with each turn. The space had that familiar startup smell, coffee and ambition mixed with just a hint of desperation. Reminded me of those long nights in the Pentagon waiting for intel drops that could change everything. Our DOJ plants were already seated, a man and woman in business casual, looking every bit like board procurement analysts. We'd briefed for hours on their cover stories. They'd only move when Kyle explicitly offered restricted tech. At exactly 10 a.m., the receptionist buzzed Kyle in. I watched through the glass as he strutted down the hallway, all confidence in his tailored navy jacket. Probably cost more than my monthly disability check. Kyle, I extended my hand, playing the eager intermediary. Thanks for making time. Our Norwegian partners are particularly interested in your integration capabilities. His handshake was firm, practiced. Always happy to explore international opportunities. He glanced at the observers, clearly pleased with the audience. Shall we get started? I gestured to the chair at the head of the table. Kyle settled in, pulling out his laptop with flourish. The screen came to life, projecting sleek graphics onto the wall. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, what you're about to see represents the future of defense infrastructure enhancement. I leaned forward, steering the conversation. Our NATO partners are especially curious about compliance standards. Any special features for European deployment? Kyle's eyes lit up. That hungry gleam I remembered from high school football games. Actually, we've developed some exclusive capabilities specifically for overseas markets. He clicked through slides, warming to his pitch. Our military-grade triggers are particularly adaptable. Triggers? I kept my voice neutral. Those aren't in the standard U.S. package. That's because we've reserved certain enhancements for our international clients. Kyle reached for his jacket pocket. I brought some detailed specs on this flash drive. The two observers stood in perfect sync, badges appearing like magic. Department of Justice, the woman announced clearly. Mr. Redding, please step away from the computer. The color drained from Kyle's face so fast I thought he might pass out. His hand froze halfway to his pocket. This is ridiculous, he sputtered. You can't. I have contracts. This is entrapment. What we have, the male agent said, is multiple recorded instances of you offering restricted military technology to foreign entities. He began collecting Kyle's devices, along with evidence of fraudulent DoD certification attempts. Kyle's eyes locked onto me as understanding dawned. The mask of success cracked, revealing the same mean-spirited quarterback who'd tormented smaller kids in high school. You, he spat. You set this up. What, couldn't handle being the town failure anymore? I said nothing, just watched as the agent secured his equipment. Kyle struggled to his feet as they moved to escort him out. You think this makes you a hero again? He screamed, face contorted. You're still nothing. Still that pathetic kid limping around the halls. The door slammed behind them, leaving me alone in the sudden quiet. Through my earpiece, I heard Marcus whistle low. That, he said, was textbook perfect. I stared at Kyle's abandoned laptop, still projecting his polished lies onto the wall. In the dark screen's reflection, I caught a glimpse of myself, straight-backed, steady, complete. The morning after Kyle's arrest, I sat in my mother's kitchen, coffee going cold while I scrolled through news alerts. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since dawn. The headlines kept rolling in, each one bigger than the last. Pine Ridge Tech CEO arrested in federal sting. Defense contractor charged with espionage. Silicon Valley startup founder linked to foreign intelligence ring. You know that moment when everything you've worked for finally clicks into place? It's like that first breath after being underwater too long. Marcus sent me security footage from the county lockup. Grainy black and white shots of Kyle being processed. Gone was the $1,000 suit jacket, replaced by standard issue orange. Even through the poor video quality, I could see his shoulders hunched forward, that cocky stance finally broken. They found a gold mine on his drives, Marcus texted. Trade secrets, draft schematics dating back to 2015, multiple foreign bank accounts. He's looking at federal time, no question. I remembered how Kyle used to strut through high school hallways shoving smaller kids into lockers. Now he was the one locked up. Funny how life works sometimes. The smell of burnt toast snapped me back to present. Mom stood at the counter trying to act casual while stealing glances at her phone. You're all over the local Facebook groups, she said quietly. People keep sharing those old photos of you and Kyle from senior year. Ancient history, I muttered. But my hip twinged, a phantom reminder of all the years between then and now. My burner phone vibrated. Kelsey's number. I stepped onto the back porch. that familiar Texas heat hitting like a wall even in early morning. "I filed the emergency divorce papers," she said without preamble. Her voice was steady, controlled. "Use the federal case documents as evidence of fraud. It nullifies the prenup's infidelity clause." Smart move. "The trust fund, too. It's frozen pending investigation. But my lawyer says with Kyle's confession on record, the court will likely grant me full access." She paused. "And sole custody." I leaned against the porch railing, watching a cardinal hop between Mom's withered tomato plants. "You doing okay?" "Better than I have in years." Another pause. "Thank you, Jared, for everything." 3 days later, Marcus sent me photos from the courthouse steps. Kelsey walking out, head high, while Kyle shuffled behind his legal team. The local papers ate it up, hometown Golden Boys empire crumbling in real time. My old commanding officer called that afternoon. "Hell of an operation, Withers," he said gruffly. "Lot of people noticed how clean you ran it." "Just doing my job, sir," he snorted. "Cut the modest crap. DHS is buzzing about you. Expect some interesting mail." The courier arrived the next morning. Thick envelope, federal seals. Inside was a contractor badge application and reinstatement offer. 6 figures, plus benefits. Full security clearance restoration. The cardinal was back, pecking at Mom's tomatoes. I watched it while my fingers traced the DHS letterhead. 19 years ago, I'd left Pine Ridge with nothing but a limp and a dream of proving myself. Now here I was, holding a future I'd earned the hard way. I signed the papers right there on the porch steps using my knee as a desk. The same knee that used to buckle under Kyle's tackles during practice. Some scars, it turns out, heal better than others. That evening I caught the national news running footage of Kyle's perp walk again. The anchor's voice was crisp. Sources say the investigation revealed years of systematic technology theft and international trade violations. Redding faces multiple federal charges. I muted the TV, letting the silent images play. Kyle's company logo being taken down. Stock prices plummeting. Kelsey's lawyer reading victory statements on courthouse steps. Marcus texted, "Justice served cold enough for you?" I smiled, thinking of that reunion night when Kyle had mocked my retirement, of all the snide comments about bagging groceries, of every smirking suggestion that I'd wasted my life serving my country. "Temperature's just right," I texted back. The cardboard box wasn't much to look at, just a beaten-up U-Haul special with military scrawled in my chicken scratch. But those folders and uniforms inside? They carried the weight of 19 years, 2 continents, and more classified ops than I could legally count. I stood in that cramped back room, morning light filtering through Mom's old lace curtains, and breathed in the musty smell of service records one last time. My fingers traced the edge of a deployment journal from Kandahar, the good one, before everything went sideways. The leather cover was cracked, pages dog-eared from countless rereads during those long nights wondering if I'd made the right call coming home. Funny how life answers questions you didn't even know you were asking. Mom appeared in the doorway, clutching her coffee mug like a shield. "Need help with anything?" "Nah, I'm good." I tucked the last folder away. "Just finishing up." She nodded, trying to hide that look mothers get when they're about to lose their kids again, even if those kids are pushing 40 with gray in their temples. The diner called, said Marcus is already there waiting. Early as always. I sealed the box with packing tape. Some habits never change. The Pine Ridge diner hadn't changed either. Same cracked vinyl booths, same coffee-stained menus, same ancient ceiling fans spinning lazy circles in the morning heat. Marcus sat in our usual corner spot, 2 steaming mugs already on the table. "Thought you'd want one last taste of real Texas coffee before DC ruins you," he said as I slid into the booth. I took a long sip, letting the familiar bitter warmth hit my throat. "You saying government coffee isn't up to your standards?" "I'm saying government anything isn't up to my standards." His eyes crinkled with that dry humor I'd missed. "But you'll do fine." We sat in comfortable silence for a minute, both watching early traffic crawl past the window. Finally, Marcus cleared his throat. "You did good work here, Jared. Clean. Professional." He paused. Would have made the old team proud. My chest tightened at the mention of our former unit. Couldn't have done it without you. Sure you could have. He shook his head. But I'm glad you didn't have to. The distant thrum of rotor blades made us both look up. Old instincts die hard. Through the streaked diner window, I could see the DHS helicopter approaching, right on schedule. Marcus stood, extending his hand. Time to move out, brother. I gripped his palm tight, remembering countless other missions, other handshakes, other moments when this man had my back. Stay dangerous out there. Always do. He grinned. Try not to start any international incidents without me. The helicopter settled onto the baseball field in a swirl of dust and dead grass. Same spot as that reunion night that felt like years ago now. I shouldered my duffel bag, tucked the box under one arm, and started walking. Movement caught my eye. There, across the street, stood the Pine Ridge High Gymnasium. Morning sun glinted off those same windows that had witnessed Kyle's mockery, Kelsey's whispered confession, and the start of everything that followed. I had to laugh. Inside the chopper, I settled into the familiar rhythm of pre-flight checks. My hand brushed something in the side pocket of my bag, that old reunion flyer now carefully preserved behind glass. The word classified stamped across it in bold red letters made me smile. The pilot gave me a thumbs up. Rotors spun faster, lifting us into clear Texas sky. I watched Pine Ridge shrink beneath us, the diner, the gym, Mom's little house with its crooked weather vane. All those places that used to feel like anchors, now just marks on a map I was leaving behind. The clouds swallowed us whole as we banked north toward D.C. I leaned back in my seat, feeling the steady vibration of the helicopter through my bones. My hip didn't even twinge anymore. The helicopter banked smoothly northward, Pine Ridge's familiar grid fading into Texas scrubland below. The agent next to me, Thompson according to his badge, cleared his throat. First time headed to the D.C. office? He asked, adjusting his headset. First time as a contractor. I shifted in my seat, the old hip twinge barely noticeable now. Used to brief there sometimes back when everything was classified 6 ways from Sunday. He chuckled. Still is, just with better coffee now. The steady thrum of rotors filled the comfortable silence that followed. I watched scattered clouds drift past the window, remembering all those transport flights overseas. Different circumstances, same feeling of crossing into something new. Speaking of classified, Thompson said, reaching for his briefcase, let's get you squared away early. He pulled out a thick manila envelope with my name printed in crisp black letters. Inside was everything I'd need for the new life waiting in D.C. Contractor badge with my photo already embedded, building access codes, login credentials for secure networks, even a parking permit for the Pentagon lot. 3-month rotation to start, Thompson explained, pointing to the assignment sheet. Cyber Integrity Task Force needs fresh eyes. After Kyle Redding, well, he shrugged. Let's just say we're reviewing all our verification protocols. I nodded, thinking of how easily Kyle had played the system. Forged credentials, backdoor deals, that smug certainty that money could buy anything, including loyalty. You'll be working with some of our best analysts, Thompson continued. People who know how to spot the patterns we missed before. The quiet threats. My fingers traced the edge of the frame in my lap. That reunion flyer that started it all. Now a reminder of how justice sometimes works in roundabout ways. Kyle had wanted everyone to see his success, his power. In the end, that same need for attention helped bring him down. The pilot's voice crackled through our headsets. 30 minutes to touchdown. I carefully tucked the new credentials into my jacket pocket, next to the worn Army ID I still carried out of habit. Different cards, same mission really, protecting what matters from those who'd tear it down for profit. The D.C. skyline appeared through breaks in the cloud cover, familiar monuments rising like anchors in the gray morning haze. Thompson pointed toward a cluster of buildings near the river. That's home base, he said. Cyber division's on the 4th floor. Good team there. They've been waiting for someone with your particular skill set. I thought about what that meant. Not just the tactical experience or security clearance, but the patience to watch, to wait, to recognize the moment when someone's ego finally overcomes their caution. Kyle hadn't been the first to mistake silence for weakness. He wouldn't be the last. The helicopter began its descent toward a private landing pad, rotors cutting through early morning mist. Below, I could see other agents moving with purpose between buildings, each carrying their own missions, their own secrets. Thompson helped me gather my things as we touched down. Briefcase, duffel bag, that framed piece of small-town history that now felt like a battlefield medal. The door slid open, bringing a rush of cool air heavy with jet fuel and possibility. I stepped onto the pad, wind whipping my jacket around me. In one hand, the briefcase held my past. Service records, commendations, the paper trail of a soldier's life. In the other, the framed flyer represented something different. A reminder that sometimes the biggest victories come from being underestimated. Standing there, watching the sun break through morning clouds over the capital, I finally understood what all those years of training had really taught me. It wasn't about weapons or tactics or even intelligence gathering. It was about patience. About knowing that true strength often lies in staying quiet, watching close and waiting for the perfect moment to act. I took a deep breath, letting the truth of it fill my lungs. The quiet ones, we're the ones you should watch most carefully. Because we see everything, remember everything, and know exactly when to step out of the shadows. I believe stories like this find us for a reason. If this one touched you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day, and tomorrow's might be the one your heart's been waiting for.